the Rabbit Hole on Wolf Spirit Radio. Thursdays 1 till 3 Pacific. Join us as we explore the expression of quantum light language unfolding in this galactic paradigm. We offer our perspective and understanding of our true destiny of humanity. We are here to take a journey, activating these light codes offered by the collective universe in this 0 point of the time-space continuum, manifesting as our core essence of light and love. So welcome both galactics and humanity as one expression of divine love and unity consciousness. You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
Well, hello, everybody. This is the Viking for another session of Down the Rabbit Hole, a Galactic Perspective. What an intense time here. I'm going to be winging it today because I'm not really quite sure of what's happening as far as these new plasmatic and galactic waves that are coming in. But we're going to try to do a show around that today. Chloe, how are you doing?
I'm really well, Viking. I'm settling into my new home here and enjoying the rain. It's put me in quite a yin internal space, so I've just really had a peace with being surrounded by these redwoods lately. How are you doing? I'm
a little spaced out, as I have to admit. Yeah. This is kind of intense times, this Mercury retrograde and Jupiter retrograde, and the compression of energies are definitely showing and rearing its ugly head in my life. And these are all, again, just aspects of me. These are aspects of me that I haven't been wholly attentive to, or been ignoring, or been in denial about, or have been just asleep at the wheel. And this is actually, I'm not complaining. This is perfect. I'm on course here as far as the training session that I feel like I'm undergoing here. But as far as outside of my immediate sphere, farm's doing well. I've just been pruning and composting and laying hay on the raspberries. Got my load of hay in, 20,000 pounds of spoiled hay, so I'll be completely mulching down my garden this year. My egg production is up to about 12.5 a week now, so the chickens are happy. They're getting a lot of chickweed and lettuce as a supplement. And we're planting strawberries, and we're about ready to put in our spring garlic. So things are happening here. I'm just under. I just feel like I'm in midterms, let's put it that way, studying for these physics.
Like emotionally?
No, just energetically. Energetically.
You feel pressed?
I feel compressed.
Yeah.
I feel compressed. Definitely, there's a lot of just psychic pressure that's building up. And another thing too is I just put my store to rest. After 10 years, I closed it down, so that was a pretty big ordeal. I had an 8,000 square foot vintage and modern clothing boutique, and with my daughter in the town I live in, and it was huge production, and I felt like it was an end of an era. They're referring to what's happening right now as an end of an era. This is a new paradigm approaching, and we're putting these old regimes to rest, and that was definitely a major one in my life. And I just got a couple more days, and I think it's kind of the pressure I'm feeling as well, is that as we start to unpack our closets, house cleaning or going through our old stuff, everything has an emotional attachment to it. Everything has this charge. That's why it's so hard to pack up and leave a house, because everything you touch has been touched before at a certain time, and you're reminded of that time, and things get triggered, and best to just let it all go. And that's kind of what I'm practicing now. I'm practicing this kind of surrendering, just everything in my life that is just caused me clutter. And there definitely has been a lot, and it's I can feel the pressure releasing, but there has been a lot of compression, and this is a very powerful Mercury retrograde.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. I noticed the day shadow began last week that myself and many people in my circle had a really, like as you're saying, a compressed day where the energy was just very trying. And I think we had a podcast that day. I feel like we had communicated. And, you invited me on the council. I think that was the day that, it had happened. And all of these weird little communication and technology things immediately started happening. I was like, wow, this season's really coming up fast. Cause usually, the shadow builds a little bit and then we get into the direct and the energy gets really potent. But for me, I was just immediately surrounded by all of these weird little, already mishaps, miscommunications, text not going through, all of it, So, and I have to laugh about it because I'm ruled by Mercury, so I know, or my Gemini and Sun is, and I know and so I guess actually now that I'm thinking about it, my Virgo moon is also. So I have to always take it with a grain of salt, right? Because it's like bearing down the hatches kind of season. And I've been watching everybody have that same kind of, there's like an emotional, I feel like there's like a turning around in oneself, like when a dog chases their tail, but that's kind of to no means, to no ends. This is kind of like, I feel like people are having to take this 180 in their being and look again. And then turn back and be like, okay, now I've got this. I've turned inside myself. I've retrieved something. I'm going to turn back and face forward. And what am I going to do with this? I'm holding this aspect or this emotion or this situation. And what am I going to do with it? And I feel like people are kind of holding things right now and playing hot potato a little bit. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah, I expressed this in the earlier show I had where I had sat down and grabbed an emotion, I grabbed it out of the air that was really plaguing me, and I started doing my Sherlock Holmes. I went back to every point in time where it has surfaced. I did this when I was in my 20s, so I went back to just every point in relationships that surfaced, and when and I asked, well, did it happen before this? And I went there and went all the way back to my grandmother. I mentioned this, and it was based on abandonment and her berating me. I was berated, emotionally. And so when I finally got there, I faced her, in my vision, in my quest here, and I literally saw her for who she was. And not for who she wasn't. Who she wasn't was this woman who was constantly tagging me. Because I used to do the flea markets with her every weekend when I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. So I had her on the weekend, and she was like, I can never do anything right, ever, And I just looked and saw that this was how she was raised. I got for the first time programmed lineage. I went, aha. This is really what's happening. She is a suffering soul, and she's passing on the energy that she was programmed with to me. It was like a baton, right? And it's like, this is her form of love. This is her form of acknowledgement. This is her form of validation, was to berate me.
Right.
And I couldn't necessarily come down or with anger. I had to find forgiveness, and I took the baton because it's lineage. And as you pointed out, I didn't quite do a 180. I did a 90. I did a 90-degree turn, and I envisioned this huge valley oak. I live in an area where there's beautiful valley oaks. They look like old dinosaurs, and I just envisioned it, and I just envisioned just putting it at the base of the baton at the base of this tree. I stepped back and said, this baton will no longer it will die with me. I released it, I surrendered it, and it will no longer go forward into my lineage. So my daughter was free of that lineage.
Oh, I love that.
Then I did the 90, and I was at a 180 again. See, so I was able to trace it back, and you can do this, by just acknowledging. And again, I say this every show, to just, have the courage and the faith and the belief to acknowledge these old structures, and they will dissipate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think that's wonderful. I was listening to a channeling the other day that was talking about, basically what we do, and the guides were saying, instead of attempting to change our aspects, allow them to just be and show up and have equal say at the table, right? And invite them in. And they were talking about how, especially when we notice the patterns, like maybe what I'm hearing you say is how the effects of her berating you have created that energy of abandonment, and maybe you move and navigate your life through feelings of abandonment, maybe however those might formulate. But was it that something happened that you were like, oh, I'm feeling this way, or creating that situation because of an internal belief that I'm abandoned?
I would manifest lifestyles, relationships based on abandonment, based on the need to be validated, and it was a total timeline that was reflecting that particular dysfunction. I mean, it was a way of life for me, and that's how I believed I was, until I finally came down to the point where, this really isn't working, and therapy helped. Again, I went to therapy, and that helped a lot. And, to be able to understand that it's what we think we are that trips us up. And, coming to this new knowledge and understanding of our inner strength and inner being, and who we're meant to be. And I mean, this is going back to our soul essence. We are all very unique, special people. We have gifts. We have virtuosity to add to humanity. We have magic to share with our friends. Anytime you're with people that you can just play music with, or dance, or just leave your timelines and find the 0 point of celebration, that's magic. You're manifesting magic.
Right. And I think that a lot of, our, as I call them, aspects, step in front of the ability for us to connect with that magic. And so the guides were talking about how these parts of us, these aspects, have control, and they create these timelines, or they control our mental process and then our emotional experiences. And so in a way, we're stepping back and giving them more free rein than we're even giving ourselves sometimes. So it was like finding that balance of not fighting them and wanting to change them, but giving them equal say at the table, and registering that their habitual patterns of beliefs, they have gained control over our mind, our mental process, and our mind has current control over our etheric aspect. And our etheric aspect is what locks in the dis-eases and the discordance in our body, right? So our etheric blueprint is going to lock in, okay, let's say I'm going to get the flu. Well, a studied clairvoyant could probably see that flu in my energetic field before I felt the physical symptoms of it. And so, kind of like reverse engineering, okay, well, I've got this going on in my body, so then there's an imprint in my etheric field, and then so there's a command or a control coming from my mind, and that's probably coming from an aspect that's got too much free rein. And I thought that was a really neat way to think about it, is like, oh yes, all of the aspects that have a little bit too much say are pulling at mental strings, which is then kind of laying out contracts and agreements in my etheric body, which then I'm like fifth down the line because I don't register until it hits my physicality or my emotions. So letting them all have this free say, but then letting them know, look, I get that you've gone through abandonment and I want to be there with you and experience that and take me back through that process with your grandma and all of that. But I want you also to know that I love you. I'm here. I'm not leaving. So instead of you needing to create this timeline that's going to replay so that you can get heard in an indirect way, why don't you just come talk to me and we can commune and I can hold you and love you and I can live my joyful life and you can experience that with me and know that you're safe under my wing when you feel insecure. It was really cool, and I started registering my mental process of how that aspect had for so long control over my thoughts. And so every time a thought would pop in, I'd be like, I love you. It's okay. No one's going anywhere. We're right here. Because mine was also a form of abandonment that came up last week. And she would, I mean, for me, it was a young version of me, but she would pop up like every hour and she'd and I'm like, no, I have to keep going back with her. I'm like, it's okay. It was really interesting watching. It was kind of like, right now I'm getting this image of her with those arm floaties, those blow up floaties that parents put on their kids, when they're going to go get in the water, and then she's like got her toe in the water and she's really scared to like get in. So she dabs her toe and runs back and dabs her toe and runs back. And we just played this dance mentally and emotionally for like a week and a half until she kind of submitted and was like, okay, I get that I'm safe enough that you're always going to be here. Even though I might keep coming back up, I'm going to let you have more command than I've been having. Anyway, so that was my rant on that, but I really enjoyed, that's a huge process that I think it'd be better if more people were savvy to it.
Those are excellent perspective and really critical for our times, because that's where we're all processing right now. And you brought up AI. We always think of AI as being a machine or being a programming machine or being some kind of artificial intelligence. I look at artificial intelligence organically as being these pre-programmed aspects of who we are that we were basically just a mind controlled into from birth or in utero or in our genetics. It's something that is not who we are. It's artificial. It's intelligence that controls and makes decisions and has the routine, the status quo of society and our lifestyle. But in essence, it's not truly reflecting our core essence. And this is how they subjugated us. We're going back to this. This is how they kept us in slavery and pain and suffering. And it's through these concepts of judgment, desperation, poverty. These are not normal. These are not part of who we are. These have been programmed into us, into our DNA, hundreds of lifetimes, brought down through our lineage. And boom, we come into this lifetime with this AI of judgment, this AI of enslavement that we just accept. So we run our course of life, in the course of this process of having mind controlled us, they've divided and conquered us. They've separated our heart mind from our head mind. They replaced it with fear. They replaced it with poverty and just anger is another one, and being sorry all the time is another one. They replaced our passion with all of these just subjugating emotions that we are starting to reclaim. So moving forward here, it is about coming and understanding these. I liken it to backing into a cactus where you pull away and you've got about 20 spines. You don't feel them until you touch them, or until they're touched, or until they're aggravated. Then you feel the pain. So each one has a response. Each one has a signal that does go into your DNA, and you have a programmed response for it, and you accept it as being normal. It is a patterning that is actually programmed in your DNA as a virus. It's keeping us from accelerating into our higher chain of acceptance and awareness. So,
what do you think about? So yesterday I re-listened to the Pleiadian Agenda on audio, which is a fabulous book if anybody hasn't read it. And it's a channeled book by the Pleiadians communicating, and I believe this was channeled early 90s or late 80s. So a lot of it has come to fruition or prophetic occurrence already. For example, in the book they're talking about, the 2012 at the Mayan calendar and stuff coming to be. So it was, written, and a lot of things have already come out to play that they spoke on that were to come in the book. And one of the things that came up was talking about our DNA biological heritage and how the reptilians are a huge source of that. And the Pleiadians were talking about how the reptilians are master geneticists that basically created our version of our human body. And, we have so much of their genetics encoded in us. And I was thinking about, there's kind of this, in my experience when talking about reptilians, they've kind of got a bad rap in the metaphysical circles. And I know that all multidimensional beings, or I should say that most multidimensional beings, there's ones that, are like the hoodlums, and then there's ones that are like try and do gooders, and so, their races and individuals range, they vary thoroughly. And working with these kind of clearings like what we're talking about right now, and knowing that we need to clear it out of our DNA, and there's actual energetic surgery that happens in that regard. And I've for a long time been working directly with the Andromedan Intergalactic Stellar Council in the healings that I do to clear out the DNA and rewrite it, and maybe, pull out certain filaments or whatnot. Though after I heard that yesterday, I was thinking, okay, I need to tune in and channel and ask, the angels and everybody first if this is appropriate and benevolent, and then find a specific group that I can work with of reptilians that can assist me in clearing and restructuring and manipulating our DNA, because after all, they created it. What do you think about that? I have never thought of them before in that way, and I'm really excited now to tune in and connect and see what they have to bring from their end of the story.
Well, when you look at the hierarchy of the dark ones, these people that have been manipulating us, that have manipulated us for thousands of years, because Draco's Archons and Anunnaki, and the Anunnakis are actually they also share the master cycle of manipulating our genetics. The reptilians, from my understanding, have been more or less enslaved to them. So they're actually, I look at the reptilians as being neutral. It's like getting a pit bull. You can have it so it'll tear someone's throat out, or it can be the sweetest dog in the world. My daughter has pit bulls, and they are so sweet. So you have this dichotomy with the reptilians. And I believe they can, in our being, there's actually colonies of reptilians that are benevolent, and they want to undo their wrongdoing. They want to assist us now in this revocation. they are definitely on board. And there are still those that are mind controlled and still those that are with the dark. So, I have an open view with the reptilians as again, being a neutral force here. But in their revocation of us, they will gain their revocation. So they're here for an ultimate healing of everybody.
Right.
Now, as far as the DNA goes, I was hearing a lot from Cryon. I've listening to a lot of Cryon. I'm about ready to switch over, but he basically was saying that just by acknowledging your DNA or talk to your DNA, or as we've been sharing, Chloe, just acknowledging our traumas and then equating it to a virus in your DNA, we can do the surgery. Okay, mm-hmm. We can through our awareness, by realizing that this is not who we are. This is a virus. This is a programmed conditioning. This is a lineage programming that created a virus, this AI virus, that we can talk to our DNA and talk to our inner child or talk to our lineage, and just, by not allowing it to control us and manipulate us, by taking the reins. It's like in the Bhagavad Gita, you have this huge battle occurring, and there's Arjuna and Krishna is at the helm. He's got the 5 reins of the 5 horses, and he's in the chariot. And he's got Arjuna there, who is just absolutely beside himself, because he's looking at both armies, and he's seeing cousins on one side and brothers on the other, and his bowmaker and the person who taught. He's just in this dichotomy. He wants to run off to the mountains to become a sadhu and not face it. But Krishna symbolizes having control of all 5 senses. Those are the 5 horses. He has the reins. He's in control. He's not allowing it to his emotions to be swept away. And so this whole discourse of the Bhagavad Gita is him sharing these aspects of who we are, and being able to come to light of who we can manifest in this higher paradigm. And I believe it is the key here, as you're pointing out very succinctly, Chloe, is that it is the fact that it's in our DNA.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really important to grasp that and understand, because with that understanding too comes the knowing that diseases are curable. I mean, whether or not one chooses to release the karmic hold that a disease has on them, or be able to actually clear it out of their genetics, anything that might be affecting them, or a life-threatening illness, it is possible, and it is even plausible in this lifetime. And so, like, one thing I've been thinking about is addiction. And we've talked on this a lot. And from what I've heard, especially in regard to, like AA, addicts are taught that it's a lifelong disease and it'll never go away. They have to manage it. Well, I disagree with that. I completely disagree with that, because if you leave it in your DNA, yes, you'll have to manage it like anything that's long-standing, though you can remove it from your familial line and clear it that way, and let go eventually, if you do the thorough work, of the impulses to create the addiction, where you might still have a draw to whatever was your vice or whatnot. You can take away that the backing, the part that really presses you to thrust into it in a destructive manner. So, and I've experienced that in my own regard. I mean, I was raised also by a addicted parent, and because of that, I had a lot of addictive, gluttonous tendencies and attractions to danger, and, you know, all of the different things. And I knew what things never to touch because I'd seen the demise. though I would learn to channel it in another way, like channel it into this type of work. Like I've definitely gotten addicted to clearing my emotions. I've gotten addicted to exercise. Other forms that are healthy, but nevertheless it's still that addictive propensity. And over the years of doing clearings of DNA over and over and over, and especially down my familial line, I feel that I've taken away any need that throws me into a desire to grab onto whatever it is in an imbalanced way. And I think that is a huge, like, new age turning point with this understanding around clearing our DNA, that nothing anymore is, has to be a lifelong affliction if you know how to begin to pull out the coding and do the clearing and remove the implants.
Well, you hit the nail on the head here, because if you look at our culture, I'm not talking about the United States, just on this planet, we are an addictive race. Our whole race functions on addiction. Everything that we do is based on some kind of either predicated or just something that's unconscious. Our decisions that we make, pain and sufferings and addiction, poverty, all of these false timelines are created out of an addiction. And one of the essence of this waking up process into this new paradigm is overcoming this addictive behavior. And
right.
This has been programmed into us. And I believe that, it basically has to do with, at some point in time, either this lifetime or in a genetic lifetime, there was a fork in the road. And through compromise, we took the road to the left, and we compromised our integrity. And this basically started the snowball tumbling down the hill. It's through compromise and not, it's like the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other. Who you're listening to, you know what I mean? It's like we need to truly start coming to an understanding and listening to our inner core and not listening to our addictive patternings. Because this is what's being challenged in us right now. This is what, in order for us to truly come to this awakening experience that is being heralded as this new paradigm, this new galactic paradigm, it is getting through these addictive behaviors. That you think you need this, or you think you need that, or this is plaguing you, or there are people that are in abusive relationships that can't leave because they're addicted to abuse. It's just too familiar, status quo. And it's a tough one, but you are absolutely right. You can literally, again, you can do it right now. Just stop and visualize your DNA, visualize that sequence of ones and zeros and eradicate them. You can do this. This is the power of the mind. This is the power of our being. This is the power of our virtue. We are manifestors. We can manifest pain and suffering, addiction, or you can manifest your absolute shining light that can take you into a utopia. Every day you're making thousands of decisions, and 99.999 are all based on addiction of some form or fashion.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Huh. It makes me think about sovereignty and how much of it we've given up without even being aware of it in the beginning. And like what we have to do to command back our sovereignty, because a part of, obviously as an addiction, we've given up our sovereignty to have free will choice in one way of looking at it. So, and what I mean by that is, if I am in full command of my way of being through my truth of unconditional love, I would have free will say on my actions and my thoughts and all of this, though I give up some of that sovereignty to these addictive patternings and aspects and implantations and whatnot that we're talking about, to be controlled to where I am enslaved to those addictions and propensities and impulses. And I find that really interesting because it's such an interesting dance to find the kind of full circle of how much it means to be a sovereign, multidimensional being. Because in a lot of ways, I think when, at least for me, when I started thinking about sovereignty as a sovereign galactic being, I started to think about, okay, well, I have to become sovereign by taking control of my choices and first living a path that I deem as benevolent. And then I started to think about it, okay, well, I need to now be sovereign because I have to take command of my energetic body and register all of the quote unquote invisible bombardments that are coming in, or the entities that are trying to mess with me, or Big Brother doing this or that, all of that stuff. Or, government imposing onto my way of being. And now since and it's kind of like I started from the way outside picture and I'm moving in a way, because now it's like, okay, well, if we start to look at even super microscopic level, if I'm going to be sovereign on my mitochondrial level, I have to take command of all of my cells and my DNA and all of the minute energetics that move through me, and flush out anything that isn't my true core essence, that reflection of love, which is all of these things that we're talking about. So it's just really interesting, the layers and layers and layers, and how, what layer do we choose to perceive from? Cause they're all accurate for our beliefs, or our reality. It's interesting the way perspectives shift constantly. And beliefs shift constantly. And like thinking about how people fight so hard for their beliefs. And then yesterday I was thinking, well, okay, but as we're learning to let go of all of our beliefs, that like energy is kind of in vain in a way, right? Because your beliefs, especially on this path, are going to be totally different next month. So that's a lot of wasted energy. And people are constantly standing up for and fighting on their beliefs when, unbeknownst to them, that belief might not even exist in their way of being next year.
Well, this is true. Beliefs are constructs that are finite, which come from the mind, which are based on these holographic, illusory timelines. They all have we're tied into them so succinctly with our security system that if anything is in contrast, we'll basically take to the streets with signs or start yelling and screaming or whatever. The beliefs are ephemeral. I mean, I try not to hold on to anything, because I'm constantly in transition with my structure of belief. And where I've formulated my belief is I believe in myself. I believe that tomorrow, every situation that I'm confronted with, I will be given, and I will be able to channel and receive or deduce the right response for the situation. Not only that, but that the universe has given me that situation to better my standing of who I am. Mm-hmm. So my belief structure is basically, as I said earlier in the show and many times, find the belief structure within yourself to allow yourself to break away from these false timelines, from these predicts and addicts. The Galactics have the reason why that we're not going to send all at once into this 5D paradigm, because we would probably implode through withdrawal symptoms. I'm serious.
I believe you.
I mean, we would be in withdrawal. I mean, this is my point of being addicted to society.
Yeah, that would be horrible, actually.
We would be in withdrawal. This is why it's a slow process of disclosure. Even in our geopolitical and in our economics, I mean, the economic has to change because we cannot wake up and find our true sense of being until we're out of poverty. Poverty is like these huge balls and change that weight us down. You know, these have been created purposely to do so. You know, so the economic has to change slowly. I mean, this is why they're saying, well, by 2020 or 2022, we'll be on a new paradigm on this planet. Well, just because it's going to take some time to eradicate these addictive behaviors and these false notions and these AI and all of this crap that we were taught in school and in college and forced to believe that we need to do this, to do that. I mean, it's just all one veil of illusion. It's the Matrix. You know, it's the veil of illusion that we have bought into. We have constantly bought into it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
well, and it's been fed to us. You know, when you're speaking about that, about the implosion on withdrawals and how it, you know, people like love their illusion, right? And this week in the astrology, there's a big focus on vulnerability. And a lot of people are being activated this week around vulnerabilities in different ways of expression and how that might play out for each individual. One big way I've seen it this week with a lot of people around me is physical disease. So either they're getting sick or they've injured their body, and that makes us vulnerable. And then suddenly, you know, maybe when you have to stop, you feel a little bit helpless. And so the vulnerability makes me think about the illusion supports that false safety around not having to face these vulnerabilities. Because when we pull away that structure and we get to the bottom of it all and everybody has to face the pain and how raw it is that we've been played like this, and then they'll get angry, right? But then eventually they'll want to take responsibility and they'll get sad because they'll realize they chose it. And that's a painful thing to realize your responsibility of moving into the matrix, right? And then accepting that responsibility and clearing away all of those vulnerabilities because of the very simple fact that we feel that abandonment and separation from creator source, and it's too painful to deal with. And I think it, you know, for me, I look at it, it all comes down to that. It all comes down to that separation, that initial sacred monad twin flame separation from source, where it's so painful for us to face that and surrender into the need to be swaddled and coddled and loved and just be in that place until we're healed and we don't feel so broken, vulnerable, where then it's safe to be vulnerable because we know we're supported and there's help all around us. And I think it's obvious how loud and crazy and chaotic it has to get to protect that space of having to face those vulnerabilities, and then it'll come crashing down.
Well, yes, it's very true. And the facing of these vulnerabilities is what's critical right now. I like to look at it as finding your composure. Because it's when you're at a discord, so you're not in harmonics of your higher essence. When you're at a discord, then you're gonna be locked into subjugation. Subjugation was not necessarily something that we vied for here in this lifetime. It was thrown upon us. A lot of it through unconscious tendencies and unconscious programming, through movies and through advertisements and through Hollywood and through our peers, and it just is music. And I mean, there's just an unlimited, source of this programming that we've been bombarded with since, in utero. So,
but do you believe you agreed to that?
I believe that a lot of us, excuse me.
No, go ahead.
I believe that it was, I don't believe, if I look at in my own life, I took it as reality because there's nothing else there showing me otherwise. I took it as this is, I guess this is who I am or what I am until I hit high school and realized there's something wrong here. I mean, I felt things askew and I realized everybody around me was fitting a plug in society, and they're going off to college or off to some predestined, pre-course of action that they have been taught to believe was their destiny to work, until they're 60 and then retire and die. This is what we're taught. I mean, how can I believe it otherwise until I started listening to my inner voice?
But I mean, do you believe, I get that that's what we get from a human level, but on a soul level for you, do you feel that that was imposed onto you or that you accepted that agreement or contract?
As I expressed, and I truly believe this, is that we were divided and conquered. So they divided us through subjugation. And so instead of having love, we had fear. They divided us. We were divided and conquered from our heart's mind, our heart, soul, and our head mind. And everything was then perpetuated in our mind, in our carbon-based reality up until now, pulling on past experiences of pain and suffering to be able to divine our future, which is no future because it's just a repetitive cycle of status quo. Running the treadmill in the jobs and relationships that ultimately are not serving us, but serving a greater mind control to where they just want us to be slaves. They've always wanted us to be slaves. We're in slavery. I mean, even this Edict 13 they wanted 80% of the population to be eliminated so they can have slaves for the elites. Been their agenda all along. And they've done this very succinctly by dividing and conquering us into believing this false paradigm exists. And we've been playing out that role for so long. And this is why it's so important right now. This is where we're at. We're at the pinnacle of humanity in redivining ourselves. This is why this is so critical. Redivining ourselves in this new love and light and this passion, in this new heartfelt, creative mode that has not existed or has been non-existent. So we are actually re-engineering our DNA. This is why I believe we're here. We came here to experience the contrast, then to be able to come out of the contrast in a lot higher sense of understanding, a lot purer sense of being, to be able to really cultivate our love and share with humanity without any kind of predisposition or judgment, and just allow the creative energy just to pervade. But this takes a unification, a singularity in this conscious awareness on this planet. It takes a singularity, and this is the process we're undergoing. People are waking up. People are coming to decide and make the decisions of what's right and wrong based on how they're interpreting their life with their higher understanding and their higher soul grouping. They're waking up. They're finding, as I said in the beginning, their composure. They're finding their composure and they're finding their accord. If you look at addiction, there's nothing wrong with chocolate or coffee or tobacco or nice clothes or a fast car. It's your attitude around it. It's that you think you need it. You know, you go to India. I spent 15 months in the monastery, studying the Vedas, and time again, you know, they're just saying it's not the element, it's your attitude and how you're approaching it, right? So it's through sublimation of the desire that you can truly have the experience that you are wanting to achieve in this lifetime. That's what I came back with. That it's through the sublimation of the desire that you think you need it. So why not just enjoy it? Just enjoy what's around you. You enjoy what you have. Manifest your reality, and just enjoy what you can in this divine essence of our expression. Then we can share this and create a humanity that is absolutely, you know, where this is what the Galactics are hoping, is that we'll all be on board. We'll find our composure. We'll surrender our addictions. We'll let go of our judgments. And we'll find this composure that we then can all link into the singularity, this conscious harmonics. It becomes a conscious harmonics that we all can tune into. You know, it's like the 100th monkey syndrome. You know, they all are tuned. It's like a beehive. A beehive knows what to do. There's no doubt. It's a bee. It makes honey. You know, it has its function. Well, we have creative function. We have creative choice to express ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. I like it. And I like that when you're talking about enjoying your life and manifesting, and when it gets tough to enjoy, you know, which is what we've been talking about, going back a little bit to the DNA, that sometimes it feels difficult to enjoy because we feel weighed down and burdened by whatever's going on. And then it's the figuring out how to soften that and deal with it appropriately and not wash over it, you know, actually move through it in whatever way that is to have a true clearing. And it makes me think about, well, ultimately it all comes down to forgiveness. We have to forgive ourselves. We have to forgive those that have been imposed upon us and everything, to let it go for our own peace of mind, to get back into that state of enjoyment. And since a lot of this DNA comes, you know, as a human, when we start looking at our DNA, usually we go right to our parents. It's the first place we go. And so then often a lot of anger can come up around family or parents, and especially if they've been particularly nasty parents or nefarious or abusive or whatnot. And a way that I have found, and I just wanted to express that the guides have often told me or my clients, is that when we're having trouble cutting those ties around, you know, letting them go as the spiritual parents that we wanted them to be, and embracing our true spiritual parents in whatever form that might be, is finding a place to be grateful for the biology that they offered. And I know this might sound extreme to a lot of people, maybe that had very loving upbringings, but for a lot of clients that I have where their parents basically gifted them their biology and that's about it, you know, as opposed, except in addition to maybe really difficult shadow life situations that are teaching them hard lessons. Well, in that there is a gratitude in being thankful for the biology and the DNA and the bloodline that their human needed to be who they are, and then let go of the rest and get into the enjoyment of who you are as an individual and letting go of those tethers and controls. And that, I just wanted to put that piece out there before we got too far away from the DNA, because I really liked that. And that's helped me a lot, in my own being, when I'm so bogged down by the weight of, you know, shadow stuff that's coming up, and I'm tracing it back to my family line, and to forgive and move into a place of joy of, hey, thanks. I love me. So thank you for creating me. And now I can move on and go be happy and enjoy myself.
And it's very true. You know, I believe, you know, again, my belief structures are very fundamental and they're core to who I am. Okay. And I believe everything is in divine order. Everything that we're experiencing is in divine order. And so our bloodlines have given me I wasn't necessarily would have chosen that in my conscious mind, but for some reason my subconscious or unconscious or my galactic mind said that this would be your best bet to be able to find a revocation in your karmic history. So the lessons I learned going back to my grandmother were very key in being able to give me composure. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Mm-hmm. Very wise words. There's nobody on this planet that's not suffering. I mean, show me someone that's not suffering, addicted, or just completely overwhelmed with some aspect of life. So their behavior is going to be predicated on that viewpoint, right? So how can you judge them, you know, when you're really judging yourself? I mean, I believe every action that we are sharing in this unconscious state is a vicarious action that is actually reflecting some aspect of us. Or why would we be reacting? Why would we be angry? Why would we be going there if it wasn't reflecting some aspect of our DNA that there's some virus encoding in there that's showing its ugly head that needs to be nurtured. And that's the key word here. Nurtured. Because all actions are brought about through invalidation. All of these negative actions are because we've been invalidated in some aspect. We have not been truly recognized for who we were. We were not truly celebrated for who we were. So we have this reactive tendency in this barrage of dysfunction. Mm-hmm. So by finding this, rather than criticizing yourself, find nurturing and forgiveness, as you pointed out so succinctly, Chloe. Thank you very much. That was an excellent perspective. We have about 3 minutes here.
Well, my pleasure, Viking. And I really like you're talking about find the joy. I mean, I trade healings with one of my dear friends, and we've long traded, and I received my end of the trade yesterday, and I brought up my topic, you know, and the guides were, as opposed to moving into any need for more clearing work or diving into the deep subconscious issues of it, it was more about managing and proliferating how to create the positives and the fulfillment aspect of it. So like, I've dug myself out of the hole, and I'm filling the hole back in, but I'm still holding the shovel, right? I'm still like carrying the weight because I'm wrapping up the work. And they're like, all right, well now you just need to learn how to put the shovel down and walk forward. And I really appreciated that because it helped me realize in the past few healings that I've had, from this friend receiving, the guides are like, hey, you've done the work. You're good. Now it's about you know, like you filled in that rut that those neural pathways created where you did that same impulsive loop of creating the same situation, the same pattern. You filled in the rut, but now you need to create some new tracks and move towards what you want. And I was so happy to hear that yesterday and really kind of ground in that in a lot of ways for those that have done the work, because a lot of people haven't done the work, and there's always more to do in certain ways. But in a big way, letting go again of the addiction or propensity to needing to turn back to do the work, as opposed to just moving forward in okay, this is what I want, I see and I know it, and how do I create a place of comfort in that being something that is acceptable for me to continue to create. So I might not be able to go straight out and grab it because maybe my belief systems are still a little bit wary of that, but I can start implementing ways of being and things to do that build a comfort and a support around having that as my initial outcome. And that's what it was all about. It was like, okay, well, you want this, so why not try this activity because it brings you a similar feeling or this and that. And it just really made me super happy to see, okay, awesome. Now I'm on to a place of picking up the little fun things to do that create comfort in the enjoyment. Because we have to be comfortable to enjoy.
Right. You have to be in your surrender and in your validation and nurturing. We're at the top of the hour. We'll be back. Thank you, JP.
You're back.
Well, we're back for the second hour of Down the Rabbit Hole, the Galactic Perspective. I'm joined here with my co-host, Chloe Hudson. David Gray, thank you, JP. Excellent selection. Chloe, you have a beautiful voice. Your voice was coming through loud and clear. I thought it was the angels singing at first. It was Chloe.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, David Gray, he was one of my favorites back in the day.
I can tell. So we're also joined today with Keith Roberts, who's going to be our future producer. Keith, how are you? I didn't pick you up at the beginning of the show, but I'd like to be able to introduce you now.
Well, thank you very much. I'm doing well.
How's your side of the world? Yes, we can hear you.
It's nice. It's kind of a mellow day. It's overcast, sprinkled a little bit. And I've been up all night fooling around with music. But things are good. I got a kitty on my lap, and she's very comfortable, and things are good.
Excellent. So, so it's raining here. Was kind of tripping out of my garden when we went out there, because, gardening for me is a lifestyle. It's actually a part of my genetics. It's part of my DNA. I recognize it going all the way back to my my Viking medieval days, where I've never felt comfortable unless I have a larder full of food of some sort, or some sort of garden or animals. I mean, I've got chickens and I've got 500 jars I canned last year. I recently this week, actually for the first time, processed my lactobacillus pepper sauce, which is you cut the peppers up and you actually ferment them, on the counter. And I actually turned that into my first sauce, and I was just very, very excited and pleased. And I bring this up because these are all aspects that really reflect who I am. They're in my genetic memory. They give me a source of joy. They give me a source of passion. I'm very passionate about canning and growing my vegetables and going out and picking chickweed for the chickens every morning and collecting their eggs. I mean, it to me is an absolute joy. I couldn't have a better lifestyle if I could just focus on that, making that part of the community, making that part of the family, making that part of the tribe, where through my passion I'm sharing, with I might give away, hundreds of jars. I can't possibly eat 500 jars of food, but I cannot not make it the same time, because I've been designed to feed a village, so I share everything that I produce here. I've recently been making granola. I'm on this granola kick. We make this nice granola and yogurt, and these are aspects that, again, really give me a sense of self, a sense of duty, a sense of morals. because I just love, my excess food last year, what I couldn't process, I took down to the local food bank. And they were happy to have it. I didn't think about trying to make money on it or trying to sell this or sell that. I just become the channel for the energy, and my vision and creativity manifests my reality. And when I'm down in my garden, I'm not thinking about these false timelines of IRS or thinking about my power bill or thinking about the mortgage on my property. I'm not thinking about any of this. I'm just completely separated in my own zone. I'm in the zone. I'm in my composure. I'm in the essence of who I am. And this pretty much set me up for this new 5D galactic reality, because I believe this is where we're all headed in this new paradigm, is finding composure, like we talked about the last hour with Chloe. Finding composure, finding your focus, finding your center, being able to address the anomalies that are plaguing you. But as we pointed out, do it with compassion, do it with forgiveness, do it with a sense of love through validation, through nurturing. Nurture that wounded child or that wounded essence of who you are. Nurture it. Because that's what created it, was the lack of nurturing, was an invalidation. Find the nurturing and then share that nurturing with those around you who are in pain without judgment. See them suffering. Nurture their essence, not who they think they are or the pain that they're suffering from. Nurture their essence, and that will find a formidable element of expressing love.
You're talking about all of getting back to basics and enjoying the fruits of your labor with the earth and all of that. It reminds me of how, that's the prophecy of the new earth, the transition period when, if an event happens, right, where everybody is kind of up in the air about that one. Is there going to be some natural cataclysm that shakes us into a final push out of our normal society, and under necessity having us kind of band together as these small communities and villages and needing to work together and support each other by creating the foods and letting go of a lot of the materialistic items that we've coddled and held on to. And it sounds like you're primed and ready for all of that, because I do believe that that's what's coming, is in whatever way it takes shape, that will be pushed into a much more communal and soul grouping oriented earth, where everybody will have their beautiful little pockets of wherever they feel drawn to. Even if you're still nomadic, you'll be journeying to all of these little pockets instead of these huge, massive cities and conglomerations, and everybody will have their place, and we'll all need to help provide for the community. And maybe, Viking will do the canning, and Chloe will offer energetic healing work, and Keith will play music for the kids, and, whatever it is. But I definitely see that that's in our near future. And I like it. It's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very pagan tribal. I say pagan because we're very attuned with the forces of nature. We're very attuned with the earth, the wind, the rain. We're attuned with the stars. We're attuned with the elementals, the fays, the elves, the gnomes. They're all part of our perspective reality. If you so choose. Again, you can manifest what you choose. I was always in this belief structure that fairies and elves and mermaids and that they all existed without a doubt. And and even myself, I would challenge myself, well, how do you know? And I finally come to the conclusion that, I would rather believe in them than not. And I believe that my belief structure manifested that reality. I mean, you want to believe in pain? Fine. You know, go off in your corner and believe in pain and suffering. But this is a time of closure. Okay? I went back in my DNA, in my life to my grandmother and faced her with compassion and found closure. And that DNA immediately restructured itself and gave me a greater sense of my being. You know, higher DNA signatures awoken. My codexes became more available to me. Every time I find every time I find composure in my life, I get a DNA codex that becomes awakened to who I truly am. You know, these hooks, I start to unhook myself and drop the shackles and clean my closet and sleep out from under my rug. I find closure. And in doing so, I find a new element of who I am, because there are all of those aspects are shielding you from an aspect of who you are. They're actually a contrast. Your pain and suffering is keeping you from your courage and strength. Your judgments are keeping you from being able to have a high regards of who you truly are. You know, they're all supplementing an aspect of who you truly are. And you surrender one in order to gain the other. Sublimation. Through forgiveness. Through non-judgment. You know, through forgiveness and validation of our abusive structure and behavior that we were, you know, carrying up until now. But again, moving forward, there is a composure and a closure that needs to occur. And I really feel this is what the elements, as Chloe's pointing out, these galactic waves and portals that are supposed to be hitting us. I'd like to talk a little bit about that. The possibility of these new energy waves that are coming in, that's the buzz of the internet right now, what that actually could look like.
Right. Well, but and we've seen that for so long. I mean, I get that every wave brings a different pulsation and there's an opening upon an opening, and though many of us have long been in the, you know, registration that we have these gamma ray light frequencies bombarding us and all of the solar flares, and how in the beginning, especially with the solar flares, there was a lot of fear around it, right? People used to get really scared, and I think it was probably activating some pretty primal fear energy in us. And then as we go along and do the clearings, the more the influxes come in, you know, depending on what stage you're at, right? But I'm kind of talking on our level. There's a lot more opening and joy and infusion and ability to have that transmutation. And so I think that what I've noticed as a theme, and when we all get to talking about energy coming through and some event happening, humans want to have that physical phenomena seen, logged, you know, data cataloged. We can put it to pen and paper. Though what a lot of us have come to register is that it's often energetic. It's often seen, you know, clairvoyantly only, intuitively felt, energetic rush, not something that's so blatant and physically noticeable, where we can pinpoint. And again, I think that since we're all really excited and anticipating some huge event that might be a shift of the final thrust into New Earth, that every time we kind of think and hope that that's what it's going to be. So the way I take it is it's going to be another energetic impulse that's going to come in and shift us dramatically, and mostly we won't register how dramatically it changed us because it's on the energetic level, and our abilities to really consciously register all of that aren't yet up to date, or at least available to us in a way where it's easy as seeing, you standing in front of me 5 feet away. That's how I take it.
Yeah, well, that definitely is what's been happening up until now with the major, there's been major events, like the harmonics convergence and the mind calendar have all brought in different portals of energy. And all of the eclipses and the full moons all have a portal. The sun has a portal, solar flares. I started feeling this back in the 70s. No one was talking about it back then. I just registered it as a pulse. About 2 or 3 times a year, I would go, there's another pulse, and I'd look around and things would very subtly, there changes would occur in people or occur in just attitudes or perception. It's a very subtle effect. And then I looked at it, it would get more and more. It'd be like a steam train slowly taking off. We're going to have one and then slowly get more power and faster until now it's like the steam train is at full capacity. I mean, it is definitely in full tilt boogie here. But what is being talked about here is more of what we're likening to the event horizon, or something like the event horizon. As I said before, I don't believe, against my belief structure, I don't believe that there's going to be one event that everybody's going to ascend and everybody's going to be in utopia. That cannot happen, as I said before, because we need to surrender our addictions, our false timelines, our false ideals and notions of who we think we are, and slowly, again, it's been shared to me by many of the Galactics, it's like climbing a ladder, one rung at a time. One rung, as I said before, as you start to let go of these viruses, you'll get a codex, which will then give you an epiphany. It'll give you an aha moment. And you might even get cathartic. I get cathartic 2-3 times a year where I'll just break out crying because it's reminiscent of starting to understand and see who I am. I'm literally, cause I'm in this, cathartic state of just finally, I'm sensing a sense of being. Right? So these then give you this expansion, but in this new expansion of awareness, different elements will then pop up. You say, well, then if you really like this, you got to take care of this. This is what's keeping you from it. This aspect of your life is keeping you from it. And it's going to be cyclical until you take care of it. And once you take care, it's like dropping a hot air balloon, dropping bags in a hot air balloon. Each one will give you a different perspective until finally you're up and away. So what's being heralded here right now is that there's going to be an event. Now, again, I don't think it's the event horizon, but I think it's an event where it's going to cause a unity on this planet. It's supposed to be coming, and so it's being described as a phenomenon that's a 26,000 year phenomenon. It's not. It's an abnormality of a sequential event.
So it's 0 point?
It's coming from the central sun, right? It's going to be able, what it's going to do is it's going to be, right, it's going to manifest the 0 point of reality. So it's coming from the central galactic sun, this massive energy wave, probably plasmatic, probably tachyon, all the, beta, gamma, photon. I mean, it's just, put them all into a blender and make a smoothie. I mean, it's coming our way.
And then throw it on everybody.
And it's going to be coming through a portal from our central sun, the sun that we have here, Helios. It's going to be coming through Helios as this wall. And it's going to literally completely encompass this planet. But the difference is that it will be visible for the first time. All these waves have been, more or less, as Chloe's pointing out, energetic. On an energetic level, which, as I have often expressed, creates a compression, which then amplifies your current state of being. It gives you an opportunity to move forward. It gives you new fodder, new information, new understanding, or you'll throw it in a tailspin. You'll continue to dig yourself deeper in your hole. As I mentioned, not everybody's going to make it here. So those who are toned and are finding composure, at least trying to find, it's not so important that you make it to the top of Mount Everest. This is not, the goal is not to make it to the top. The goal is to find yourself in that direction. Whether you make it to base camp 1 or base camp 2, it doesn't matter as long as you're trying to make it to a base camp. Because you'll find composure, you'll find a collective of like minds, you'll find your soul grouping. It's just important that you're doing the 180 and you're not locking into these false timelines. So this wave is going to be hitting us in a visible spectrum, and it's going to be basically stop everybody dead in their tracks. It's supposed to be basically the electronics are going to fry and whatnot. And, but it's only supposed to have a 72-hour, presentation. I guess it's a presentation of what is to come. So it's going to help to eliminate false timelines. It's going to help to eliminate this, dysfunctional behavior. It's going to help to clear out certain akashics that are not serving you. It's going to help to realign your DNA. It's going to be heralding a new paradigm. And that's going to go away. It's going to basically bathe over us and keep on going. But this is supposed to be kind of like the event which will then bring us into a more crystalline understanding. So we're taking all this carbon, putting it under compression, and creating a diamond light. That's how diamonds are made. It's compression of carbon, and you get a diamond light. So the diamond light in our core essence is going to be activated. All the carbon aspects are going to be swept away, and you can have this clear understanding. This diamond light activation. That just came to me, by the way, but that makes sense.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I still think because of everybody's, the variations of levels of enlightenment and ignorance, that it'll be very personalized and individualized to each person. I think that many will not register it as it has been consciously, though it may bring them to a place of consciousness. And I also think that a lot of people that, as we term them, the first waivers of the event horizons, will probably be able to visualize it and synthesize it and energetically experience it in a conscious way, though regardless of how one receives it consciously, it will absolutely affect us all. And go ahead.
I was going to say the first waivers here, us being first waivers, we're going to be first responders and involved in a lot of triage with everybody else that's freaking out,
Yeah, well, and that's wonderful because I guess that kind of makes me think about how it, and not in a, when I say this, I don't mean this in a way that's, what's the word? Like looking down on anybody. I've just lost my word, but, it'll be amusing in a way for us to kind of hold a gentle, accepting space with the freak out modes, and then, also how astonished a lot of people in freak out mode will be when they see others being calm and collected. And I mean, that's the nature of it coming in the waves, right? In different tiers, because everybody has their role, and all of us need those to assist us. All of us have those to assist us. Even if some of the first waivers, actually I was going to say don't look to humans, but that's not true. I think the first waivers register more than most at this point that we absolutely need our tribe, that we're a stronger band together, and that it's totally okay and we're comfortable in our vulnerability, saying, hey, take my hand, support me. I need you. I know you're here for me because I'm here for you. And it starts that 101 monkey effect, like you're saying, of registering. I get that you're scared, but we're all going to do it together and it's going to be okay. But I'm really happy that I presume I'll be in that space of being of the world and not in it, right? When all of the mass freakouts start to happen. But again, I don't think that this wave is the one that creates the ultimate chaos in the way that it's been prophesied to be. I think chaos will rear its ugly head as it has been because it's going to get a lashback, and it's basically it's burning in the fire, so it's freaking out because it's on fire. Though I don't think it's the event, and I do believe there will be a series of events in regard to shifting the earthly physical geography. Though I don't think that this is the one. I think this is a much more energetic, awakening process to start moving the energy and waving in more of the diamond consciousness and helping people let go of what, you're saying, the carbon-based bodies, and waving in the crystalline.
So if you look at what's called gatekeepers, and a lot of you out there are gatekeepers. You are locking in the energy that's coming in. Every time we get a photonic flow or a gamma ray burst or a plasmatic energetic signature, we basically, as gatekeepers, are grounding it into the core of humanity. I got a person bringing back yogurt jars and milk bottles. I'm sorry about that. But so the point being is that we hold a space. I hold West County here. I hold about, I would say, 200 square miles is my gate. And then within this gate, there are people that I touch, and there are family members that may only have one family member that's atoned, but they'll be able to then help their family come, because they're going to be in shock, and they're going to be in stasis when this occurs, because their sense of reality is going to be shattered. And so, this is what, this, as a family member, and being able to help your husband or your wife or your children or your siblings, your key here in holding your composure and understanding that this is just a blast of energy that's going to accelerate us into this new crystalline grid of conscious awareness. Now, where people go with that is up to them. Again, there's going to be people that have nothing to do with it. They'll be taken off planet at some point in time into another 3D planet, and they'll be able to live out their existence. There'll be people that are going to be on edge. And this is what we need to be doing. We need to be doing our triage through validation, through being able to just be there as encouragement, be the Rock of Gibraltar. Just be solid. Be solid, man. Just be solid with your belief structure and start to tie into your quantum light language that's going to be happening here, which is tying into your harmonics and soul grooving. You'll be guided. You will absolutely be guided. As I said before, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but when tomorrow comes, I'll know exactly what to do, because in that moment in time, in that 0 point of reality, I will get the information I'm needed to receive, because I have trained myself to listen and to not judge it and to be able to accept it for who I am, because it is me on a higher level communicating to me. It's like looking in a reflective pool. This information is true to course, and just grab onto it. Phones ringing, pick it up, and absolutely you will be guided on your next course of action.
So what do you think about, kind of shifting a little bit, so when I was listening again to the Pleiadian agenda, and they're talking about the shifts that are coming and all the changes and the people registering and understanding. And they went into what we term, the return of the goddess energy, right? The feminine coming back online, the divine feminine up-leveling and helping the divine masculine come back on. And they were saying that the Pleiadians were talking about how our creator, because, we have an omniverse, there's more than one universe, so there's more than one creator per universe, and then it goes up and up and up, is speaking that our creator is of a feminine yin energy, right? And when they started saying this, I don't know why. I was actually shocked that I've never thought of this, but my brain immediately pictured a woman that's pregnant with a baby, and I went, duh. Duh, our creator is feminine. Macro to micro, there's no more obvious, kind of, a little clue there, because women are the creators. I mean, we create life. And I thought that was just so funny, and it did so much in my being to shift my whole worldview, actually, in that moment. And it gave me such a much more thorough understanding on another level of why the shadow masculine works so hard to oppress, the divine feminine. And what that means, I mean, that means so much for our shift in creating our realities and coming to that understanding. So what do you think about that creator is of a yin feminine energy? Do you subscribe to that?
I'll give you my interpretation. I believe that we all have, for example, I cannot exist here right now speaking to you all without a feminine divine. Okay, so this is what's called your essence twin. So I cannot exist without my essence twin, my feminine divine. I'm 90-10, she's 90-10. We have a counterpart. A lot of people fortunately have been able to hook up with their essence twin. Mine's still Galactic. And we together create a whole. So I believe that creator spirit's the same. I believe that there's two aspects. I mean, you talk about, Gaia Chitaya Gondolas Gandanam. There's that feminine divine and the masculine divine. They create one. And I believe what's been happening here is that the female has been subjugated in our culture, in our race, and humanity. She's been veiled, but I've always kept her unveiled. I've always kept her in my course of action, because I believe it is my divine right to care for, to validate, and to provide for divine feminine. This is my role as masculine, as divine masculine. So as she's creating, I'm providing everything she needs to create. Including companionship and a house and food, and so because she is in her divine mode of creation.
Yeah, I have always looked at, I know there's a balance in that, of course, because it must be yin and yang. And so I don't, with that, and I intuit that as truth when I read or when I hear that the creator is of a yin essence majority. That feels true in my being, to each their own. I don't know where that balance is, and I know there is a balance, right? And channeling, and I guess for anybody who might not understand what we're talking about with Gaia Chitaya Gondolos Gandanam, well, Gaia, most of us have known, is what we call Earth Mother in a metaphysical, energetic essence. And Chitaya is her higher self. So as we're ascending up to 5D, 6D and up, Chitaya is the higher self that Gaia is ascending into. And what I have channeled, and so, take it if it's what resonates with you or not, is that Gaia Chaitanya have a divine counterpart, a twin flame. Gondolos is the twin flame of Gaia, so lower self, Gaia Gondolos. Gondanam is the twin flame of Chaitanya, so higher self. And Gondolos, Gondanam, basically went into hiding when everything went down, when this version of Earth, she lost her ability to hold her sacred free will, and there was a divine alignment, and all of what Viking is calling the subjugation and the enslavements, and all of this started, and the shadow came upon the earth. Gaia and Gondanam basically made an agreement, and Gaia said, hey, I am mother. I cannot leave my children. They need their mother. And Gondanam said, we know what's coming, and for the sake of not losing all of our divine conscious essence, I need to go into hiding so that one day I can come back forth and be pure and come align with you again. And that was the agreement. And so Gondanam, Gondolos basically went into hiding. They went into hibernation. And now they're coming back out, and the divine masculine is uprising. And Gondanam, Gondolos explain themselves as the first manifestation of their presence back into earth essence is spirit in physicality. So the first gift that they're bringing online is how a lot of us are starting to experience in our own individualistic ways for a while, how we're proving to ourselves that spirit is in physical existence. It's becoming tangible. It's closing the gap on how science says, spirit, you can't weigh it, you can't measure it, it's just a bunch of hoopla, we don't believe in it. And we're watching everybody in their own way, and maybe it's not super tangible in your life in a way that your brain can prove it. But if you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure in some form you're open to that being a truth, that spirit is real for you. And so that's Gondanam and Gondolos in action. So for me, there's definitely a balance. There has to be a balance. Though I feel like what a part of that is talking about is like the chicken or the egg, right? So for me, it's like the masculine was born of the feminine in this version of creator. I don't know about like ultimate source before the initial split happened, but what I think I'm just playing with this because none of this is, I haven't anchored this into my being, but I'm starting as I talk to wonder if for our version of this universe, is it that the masculine was birthed of the feminine and then upheld as balanced and equal? I don't know. I mean, I'm just kind of, it's a whole new terrain for me.
I like to view it as a cell. So you have creative spirit as cell, and that creative spirit divides into two, right? And that divides, and that was the birth of creation. You have creative spirit. When you look at spirit, it manifests through your intent and purpose. My Viking, my sense of integrity as a warrior, my morals as a dad and as a community member. We know what's right if we tie into our spirit guides. And as I said, it's you looking at you. I have a higher spirit awareness, like Gondolos Gondanam. And my higher awareness is speaking to me right now. This is what I channel when I go on air. I go through my quantum light language, and it comes to me as visions and insights and understandings, which I have to unpack into words and share with those of you who are out there. But The creative spirit split into two, male and female. Divine male, divine masculine, divine feminine. And from there, it procreated this entire universe. But again, divine masculine has its purpose. It provides, and divine feminine has her purpose. She creates.
Mhm. Mhm. I agree with that, and I agree. Another, and this is just coming about, and it makes me excited to do some more channeling with Gondolos Gondanam, is that, another pretty obvious thing to many of us is the complete lack of understanding of sexuality in our physical bodies, and not just sexuality in regard to how we interchange with each other's, but our own sexuality, even our sexual biology. People are so oblivious to what it is we actually can do and what we have and our abilities and how to utilize and how to heal and how to tune in. And there is a huge need at this point for revelation around that and an understanding of what sexuality truly is, because that's that ultimate creator into physical, tangible spirit, into physical, tangible form. And the expression of that and that alchemical energy. So and then even as much as we know of Kundalini, we still know very little. That's still such an elusive mystery. So I think too, there's going to be another huge movement in this regard, hand in hand, which will help soften a lot of this chaos and shock energy, is the revealment of sacred sensuality and sexuality, and that as an expression and a means of interaction and communication and connection with one another. Because I think to fully understand and experience and embody your true unconditional being, you must obviously stand in your sacred sensuality and sexuality and have that ability to commune and communicate and connect with each being. And so when I go back to sex as an acronym, synergistic energy exchange, you're all day long having that synergistic energy exchange with all things, everything you come in contact with and everything you create, your thoughts and your emotions. And that web of connection and coming into a physical conscious understanding of how you're constantly communing and connecting and in tune is a huge part in us uniting as one world and up-leveling this new earth. And that type of energy, when it's received in a safe, healthy, spiritual expression and reception, there's so much enjoyment in that, which of course will beget our ultimate manifestations. So I just think there's about to be a huge movement, and probably also in science and medical worlds too, of our actual physical biology and anatomical abilities and discovering what our bodies can do and what this was for and all of that's going to start to explode into our conscious awareness, because we're clueless around that.
As you pointed out, as an acronym, it does reflect in all aspects of life. I was just thinking like my canning. I go through the motions of okay, let's start here first. Our idea of sexuality is way off course. I mean, if you look at the Galactics, they're saying that sexuality can be the greatest healing element given to humanity if it's properly engaged. The problem is that we're so caught up in our rat race of tension that sex has become a tension release. For the male, it's a 50-yard dash down the football field. They make a goal, a game over. For the female, she has an orgasm, the tension is released. Very, very rare do you have a situation where you have a commonality in trust and passion, where a man and a woman come together, man and man, woman and woman. I'm not going to get political here, but just when you have two partners that come together, and there's a passion of sensuality being that you are just celebrating life with both of your bodies. There's a celebration, a validation, a nurturing. And there's a worshiping here. I mean, I worship the divine female in my partners. That is my job to be available to her for her course of action. But the sensuality is a buildup. It's a buildup. And then you have this like thin layer or veneer of sexuality. See? And then there's a whole nother buildup of sensuality. And the problem is we're all gorging on the frosting. We're all gorging on frosting, and we miss the whole point of the passion and the sensuality and the buildup and the magic. So I'm out there in my garden, my passion. I'm planting the seeds. I compost, developing the beds, planting my seeds. I have such passion when I plant, and I watch them grow every day. And I finally harvest, and I'm in the kitchen, and I'm canning my summer squash pickles, and they go in a jar. And the orgasm is when I'm able to open them up, and there's the food. It's just like in such a crescendo that's built up with passion and intent and purpose around trust, around sensuality. Sensuality is key here. We as a race have eliminated the sensuality out of our life. We're gorging on designer clothing, gorging on food, gorging on everything, but the sensuality is the enjoyment of the moment in the 0 point of reality. Free of tension, free of anything that's going to hinder that sacred union of your partner. Which can...
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
That's it.
I enjoy your metaphor of gorging on the frosting. That's so true. So I really enjoyed, by the way, that the podcast with the council last Thursday, the 1 to 3 time frame that you invited me onto, and the channeling that gentleman was doing around the Fae and the elementals. And pardon the dog in the background, but so how they were communing, and what's been coming up a lot for me in healings is, as I've said before, that the devas and the elementals are really asking for us to connect with them and commune and realize that we're constantly in an interaction with them, but we're not being conscious of how they're trying to communicate and connect. And so when you're talking about what you're doing with the land and the food, and you're fully communing with the elementals, because all of our bodies were made up of these elementals, but we're clueless of how to commune with them. And if we knew how to talk to them and understand them, we could bypass so many diseases, or how fruitful is your garden compared to Joe Blow next door, because you commune with it, as opposed to, just harvesting and going along and doing it methodically. And I think that that's such an important thing. And I found a lot of validation in, again, the Pleiadian agenda. And the first, star seed that I connected with was my Pleiadian aspect. So I really resonated with the Pleiadian agenda. I remember I picked it up, and this might have been 10 years ago or something. I remember I picked the book up in a Barnes and Nobles or whatever, and I shot out of my body. I almost fell out down to the ground. I'd never had an experience like that, just holding the book. And it took me 10 minutes to get back in my body, and I didn't know what that was, but I knew I needed to read it. And so I think there was a huge awareness awakening with me in that. So I really resonate with what they bring forth, and especially their perspective, because I think a lot of my ways as a human, I synthesize a lot of my Pleiadian energetics, and even the way I channel and tune in And when I started channeling, I loved talking to the flowers, or like communicating to my spoon, or doing all of the things that people might deem you as pretty darn crazy. But I would sit there and I would talk to the tree, and I really enjoyed, I got such a kick out of talking to the whole tree as its one entity, and then tuning into the individual leaves, and then talking to the bark, and then maybe tuning into the stem, and kind of getting this grasp of there's so many tiny little independent consciousness aspects here, and then one congruent one. And that is like sensuality exchange, just being aware and communication and connection. And we're so oblivious, as you're saying, in our day to how many of these amazing exchanges we can have. Beyond just talking or listening, it's actually connecting and feeling and tuning into. That would just change the whole way we look at everything. I mean, you know, I don't know if you've ever experienced reaching down to pick a flower and then it scolds you because it doesn't want to be picked. It starts to make you think very differently about things.
Well, you know, it is reflective here. I mean, we all grow and expand our sense of self, sense of awareness based on validation and nurturing. A child grows, we validate and nurture the child. You know, we have a house plant, we have a pet. You know, it's all about validation and nurturing that you gain a relationship. So too with the fairies. You know, my daughter, when she grew up, we go out and build fairy houses to validate their existence, and then they would enter into our lives. You know, this is how it works. You have to get that belief structure out that they don't exist. You have to give yourself permission to believe. And for me, it's a belief structure that I hold deep within, that I then engage as a tool of engagement, a relationship with those around me. I can't cross over a bridge without acknowledging the troll. If I'm walking, I know there's a bridge, I'll bring a piece of sweetmeat to throw under the bridge. Because they love sweetmeat, you know. The dryads in the tree. Every tree has a dryad. Every tree has a dryad. Acknowledge the dryad, and they'll be your friend. You know, all bodies of water have water sprites. You know, a meadow fairies. I mean, you just have to start validating your truth, and it will manifest into your belief, and it will manifest into your relationship with life, in its passion and sensuality, and all of its course of action. We got 1 minute, Chloe. Very quickly, World Peace Project on YouTube. Your website is?
worldpeaceprojects.global.
And as far as the show, you're welcome to come on the council anytime, Chloe. You're welcome guest. Next week will be the Galactic Interstellar Council. Thank you, everybody. This is the Viking. We are hand in hand. We are boots on the ground. No one gets left behind. Hold true, hold fast. Until next time. And here we are. JP's not used to me being on time, so it's kind of probably wandering out there in his own space and time.
Talking to the fairies.
Yeah, his chickens. He's out there with his chickens.
Doing more fencing.
Yeah, I like that time continuum of chickens. I'd rather have that than being locked in traffic any day. Keith, how are you?
Had to unmute there. No, I'm good. I really appreciate.
How about your show tonight? Your show tonight. Who's your guest?
Gonna have J. Charles Parker on, and he is just a wealth of information. I mean, how he remembers everything. You know, those people that can just whip off things, and he is really dead on with the type of information I like to share, and that you're sharing as well. So he's a really wonderful guest. That'll be at midnight tonight Eastern time on freedomslips.com.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Until next time, it's been a great show. I really appreciate it. And here we are again.
Let me just make a comment since we don't hear the music yet. I'm sure JP will come in any second now, but acknowledging the nature spirits, the fairies, the gnomes, the sprites, that's a really beautiful thing. Just support them, say thank you, because they're doing the work, that's supporting the flora and fauna that we rely upon. So they are just as much a part of this creation as everything else. I think people ignore them too much.
They're holding down the etherical kingdom for sure. They are the gatekeepers of nature.
I always feel them when I go out in nature. I have always been sensitive, even as a young boy.
Well, when I plant my summer garden, I always plant herbs at the ends of the beds so that the fairies have a place to go during the winter.
I love that. That's great.
You never want to strip a bed clean.
We gotta go, guys.
We're just waiting. Thank you.
You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.